Okay, so we're back. Most of us are back anyway. So it's my pleasure to introduce our second speaker this evening, Lauren Stoney. She's a lightning process practitioner and therapeutic coach. And those of you who have been to some of our events, Lauren's gone. Oh, there you are. You moved. And those of you who've been to some of our events over the past year may have had a chance to meet her. She's quite memorable. And Lauren, as we said just now before the break, this was supposed to be a talk about the lightning process. But in view of everything that's happened, how the entire life of society has changed in the last 2 weeks, we've decided to have a more sort of current affairs type of talk. So Lauren is going to talk about well-being in the age of the coronavirus and share with us some immune boosting tools. So let's start. I'm very excited to hear that.
Yeah, sounds promising, doesn't it? Immune boosting tools. So yeah, I think there's a lot of stuff that we could talk about with the coronavirus in terms of our well-being and our health. But the focus that I'm really going to look at today specifically is really tailored kind of health visualizations, and I'll bring some of the science of the mind-body connection in with that and some of the research that's been done, so it's quite interesting. And I suppose the reason why I'm kind of in a position to talk about this is that, for those of you who don't know my sort of backstory, in August 2016, I was, after a couple of years of kind of declining health, I was diagnosed with a lifelong autoimmune condition. And that at that time, I'd been signed off work for about a month. I was near on housebound, so I wasn't really able to get out of the house. I'd been, like I said, signed off work. I'd been given this prescription medication that I was told I'd need to take for the rest of my life. And I was ready to give up on my career. So it was looking pretty bleak for me at that point. And then I thought, right, desperate times call for desperate measures. I'm going to give this thing called the lightning process a go. And I did. And then a week later, I was back at work. And my health has just been sort of on the up ever since. I didn't even take the medication in the end. I threw the prescription away. So it had a pretty, pivotal impact on my life. In fact, I'm going to share a screen now, so bear with me. I cannot start screen share while the other participant is sharing. Niko, can you change that? Share. Okay, we'll stop by this. Right, okay, that's fine. Okay, here we go. There you go. Right. So this was me on day 3. Can you all see that? Just wave if you can. Yeah, excellent, thank you. So this was me on day 3, and this was basically me sort of burning away all of my medical records and anything that even remotely resembled that old life, because I knew things had changed at that point. And, like I said, I'm not here to talk about the lightning process, but I always use this story because I think it's important to remember that actually, there's a lot more out there that's possible than we really realize. And in the context of today's madness and the coronavirus, I'm certainly not suggesting that we're superhuman, but, we can't protect ourselves from everything, but we do have a lot more power to influence our health than I think a lot of people realize. So that's kind of where I come in. And I sort of work with people to help them influence their health in positive ways. So with the coronavirus, let's get back to what we're here for. I think, one of the things to just bear in mind is that obviously I think a lot of you, Elena, you talked about it's quite an exciting time in many respects. Obviously for a lot of people, there is a lot of stress, a lot of anxiety, a lot of panic out there. And I think most of you on the call will probably know that obviously anxiety does have quite a negative impact on our immune system. So anxiety suppresses our immune function in a lot of cases, unless of course you have an autoimmune condition, in which case it goes the other way. But obviously if we're getting ourselves into a state of anxiety and we're suppressing our immune system, that's not going to be particularly helpful when you've got a contagious virus that's flying around. So in much the same way, I think, I was thinking about this the other day, we're all doing what we can in terms of hygiene and sanitation. We're washing our hands regularly, we're keeping 2 meters apart, but we need to be, that's one responsibility, but the other responsibility we have is to manage our brains effectively, so that we're not only keeping our keeping calm in a useful place, we're also helping others around us as well. Because if we're going into a stress response, it's not going to be helpful for those around us, and it's certainly not going to be helpful for us. So that's kind of where I'm going with this. So just to have a little recap, this is what's happened so far. So if we think back to January 2020, this happened. The Wuhan coronavirus. Anyone remember that? And so at first, I think, a lot of people thought, oh, it's nothing to be worried about. It's just another media kind of hype. But then we start seeing stories pop up everywhere from the media. And then we kind of start to see the reality of the situation, don't we? We see it kind of, the healthcare system's having a real strain. And then, of course, what happens is mass panic ensues, which is always a good place to be for society. Supermarkets get ransacked. That's actually my local Sainsbury's. And then we see it kind of splashed all over the media, life with the coronavirus. What's going to happen? So what happens to our brains? What do our brains do when they're confronted with all of this information? Where do they go? They kind of go somewhere like this, by the looks of things. And if we kind of delve into a bit more of the detail, we look at some of the thoughts that are coming up. Just notice some of the thoughts that may have come up for you guys and see what resonates. So what if I get it? Will I be okay? Will I lose my job? So these are all very fair statements to make, questions to ask. And, as we've already kind of discovered from the beginning of this call, unfortunately, some of these things have happened to people. But in the majority of cases, these are all what ifs, aren't they? The reality is we don't know what's going to happen with this thing. And although some people have experienced some of these things, and the media's done a very good job of highlighting that, we are surrounded by threat every single day. It's just that in the case of the coronavirus, we don't know what to expect. We don't know where it's going to go. And the brain doesn't like that. So the way that the brain works is it will take from our previous experience, and it will use that to inform our, what we expect of the future. And it will use that to develop a sense of knowing, a sense of control. So we can see why the brain is going down this road, but it's not particularly helpful for us. Now, the other thing is that the brain is very clever and it likes to optimize things for us. So it's kind of a bit like a game of connect the dots, I suppose. So if these are kind of some of the initial thoughts we might have, whatever is our major issue, it will look for connections and find them everywhere, okay? So if these are the initial questions that we might be kind of thinking, and there's a kind of like a round two, I suppose, and the round two might look a bit like this. So again, just noticing where this might resonate for you. Okay, so just noticing those. I'm not going to spend too much time on these, but I think it's important to be aware of these things when they come up. Now, I'm not trivializing any of these things. I'd be lying if I said I hadn't thought any of them myself. But if you do notice any of these resonate, there's really two kind of questions that you need to ask yourself. So the first one is not whether this is true, but whether this is useful. So, being hypersensitive to personal space and other people's air. I was at the supermarket the other day and a girl almost knocked herself out trying to dive out of the way as I turned the corner, Now, obviously, I can understand why she might be a bit on edge, but that's not going to be particularly useful for her, because what we know about anxiety is it suppresses our immune system. So if she's on that fight or flight response, having this thought here is not going to be helping. So that's the first thing. The second thing is, recognizing where we have a choice. So I imagine a lot of you will be familiar with the serenity prayer, which is along the lines of, grant me the serenity to accept the things that I cannot change, the courage to change the things that I can, and the wisdom to know the difference between two. Now, the coronavirus is out there, of course. We can't do anything about that, but we certainly can change the way that we're responding to it. If we are doing this thing here and we're sprawling the media every 5 minutes, what we're going to be doing is fueling ourselves with panic, isn't it? And again, that's not going to be helping us. It's just going to be adding extra baggage to an already kind of weighed down load. So if you kind of imagine that you're, let's just say you're a boat and you're sailing through the sea. Let's say you're already a bit weighed down, but instead of lightening that load, instead of throwing some things off the boat to lighten that load, you're just going to put a whole extra ton of baggage on it. So it's going to slow you down even further. So when we think these thoughts, this is what we're doing. We're adding extra baggage to the load, which we don't need to be doing. Obviously, I make it sound very easy, just stop thinking those thoughts. And there are ways that you can do that. But that is kind of beyond the scope of this talk here today. But it's good to be aware of it, because ultimately, a lot of these things haven't happened. For most of us, our bodies haven't experienced coronavirus, yet our brain is churning out thoughts about it. So we need to do something different. Hallelujah, how exciting. This is where it gets interesting. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to give you a little exercise now before we go into the I'm going to talk about a bit of research around the mind-body connection. But first of all, I'm going to give you a little kind of exercise to do. So I'm going to stop my screen share for a moment because I want to see your beautiful faces. So what we're going to do is we're going to look at changing the relationship that we have with our immune system to start with. Okay. This is one particular tool you can take away with you. It's very simple, very short. And one thing to know is that the way in which the brain works is we will assign certain qualities to things based on the meaning that we attach to them or the way in which we perceive them. So if someone's experiencing anxiety about something, they might, imagine a picture of something quite dark and dingy. If you're thinking of something really positive, it might bring more colourful images to mind. So it's kind of a basic example. But you will see how this kind of manifests in this exercise. So what I'd like you to do is close your eyes for a moment. And just take a nice deep breath in. And just for a moment, just thinking about your immune system, just connecting with that, connecting with your immune system, and just noticing as you do what comes up for you. So if you had to represent your immune system with an image, perhaps an analogy, just what would come to mind? What does your immune system look like? So I had one client who, when she did this exercise, her immune system was represented by an under-resourced A&E services. Hopefully that's not the case for you guys, but just notice what's coming up. And then when you've done that, just mentally push that to the side for the moment. And what I'd like you to do now is to connect with a time of transformational healing. Okay. So this could be a time in your own life where you've healed something or recovered from something. It could be someone that you know who has recovered or healed from something. Or perhaps it could even just be the idea of a malnourished plant soaking up the water and the nutrients from the soil and just coming to life, just seeing it open up and expand. And as you do, just noticing the qualities of this time of transformational healing. Noticing the colours, the textures. And then when you really have deeply connected with this, I'd like you to just imagine that your immune system is taking on these qualities. So these qualities of transformational healing, absorbing and soaking up the colours, the textures. Feel what that feels like and just notice how that shifts and transforms. And then when you're ready, you can bring yourself back. Welcome back. And could I ask you to put the sound on, please, Niko? Like my glamorous assistant.
Yeah. No, everything is fine. I think that people are unmuted apart from those actually who muted themselves personally, so right. I can't actually force them.
Yeah. Okay, thank you. So who would like to share that experience? How did your immune system start and where did it end up? What did it look like before and after?
Am I unmuted?
Yeah.
Yeah. That was a really helpful exercise for me because I've kind of wanted to work on this issue for a while, and recently I was ill and it kind of went on for a bit. And I'm actually a healthcare practitioner. I'm not supposed to get ill. And actually, I have been really healthy, for many years. So it was a bit of a shock that I got ill and it went on. And then I was just getting better and I got ill again. And I don't even know if it was the virus, because I wasn't coughing and I didn't have a temperature. But anyway, I felt like my immune system was just like not up to the job. And I kind of, because of the other work I do, I kind of know why that is. And it felt like it was quite a deep issue. And that exercise was really interesting because, it's it feels like a really, really useful tool to bring in this kind of energy.
Yeah,
and I guess I feel like it was so timely for me because I've been kind of thinking, what do I need? What do I need?
It's amazing how I think it's such a simple exercise, a bit like mindfulness, such simple things, but so powerful. Interestingly, I had I was on a course, I was mentoring some of the students, and we did this kind of exercise. It wasn't the immune system, but it was a similar kind of exercise. And one of the women on the course, she'd had lifelong hearing problems, and we did a similar exercise, the tutor and her, and she would used to have to sit at the front of the class because she couldn't hear. And anyway, she did this exercise, and then when she went back to her audiologist, what's that called? Isn't it audiologist? Her hearing problems had either resolved or significantly improved. So absolutely incredible what you can do. So definitely don't be deceived by the simplicity of that, because it is really powerful. But yeah, thank you. Thanks for your feedback. I'm going to move forward just because I don't want to run out of time. Oh, sorry, Adrienne, do you want to talk?
Well, just to say that was incredibly useful for me because my immune system is totally depleted. And I think the image that you gave of the NHS, I could feel it. Oh, God. And the simple image of that plant and water, it was amazing. I could really feel, oh, my God, that's one, to be nourished So yes, thank you. That's an image I can really hang on to and use.
Yeah, and it's interesting because what you just described as well, I think that feeling that you mentioned, that's our neurology, isn't it? And that's when you feel that neurological, I mean, I haven't talked about neurology here, but I bang on about it a lot because that's the core of the lightning process. When you feel that shift, that's your neurology changing, and that's the foundation of health. So
went to the Bahamas.
Okay, I'll crack on. You've got 2 more exercises after the research, so I'm just going to go back to my screen share. Okay. There we go. So I'm just going to talk a bit about the mind-body connection, some of the research that's out there. So one study, which I just find absolutely fascinating, is they basically got 2 groups of people. And one group, they got them to lift a weight with their little finger, just their little finger. And the other group, they got them to imagine that they were lifting a weight with their little finger. And I think they probably did it for about 6 weeks. That's generally the time I think they do in these kind of studies. Now, what was fascinating was, as you would imagine, the group who lifted their weight with their little finger, they obviously developed muscle mass in their little finger because they were exercising it. But the group who did not lift the weight with their little finger, they just imagined it in their mind for 6 weeks. They also developed muscle mass in their little finger, which is just incredible. I'm not sure it was the same amount of muscle mass, but the point is the body behaved in accordance with the brain. So what the body thought, what the brain thought was going on, the body responded to that. And for those of you who are quite clued up in this area, it probably comes as no surprise that this is obviously, in alignment with the placebo effect, which most of us will know about. And what that is, it's basically demonstrating the power of what's called expectancy response. So if we expect something is going to happen, then the body will follow suit. Now, what's interesting with the placebo effect is that how heavy was the weight? I'm not entirely sure, but I can find out and come back to you on that one. So the placebo effect, what's interesting is if you give a group of people a white paracetamol, then a certain percentage will get a response. But if you give a group of people a red and white pill, you get an even stronger response because it looks hardcore. So there's a lot of the power of belief is very very significant in how much of an effect we get. So surgery is one of the most powerful placebos in the world because we have a lot of evidence that tells our brain this is actually happening. Anyway, this is a fascinating study. So these little Y-shaped things here, these are called, I'll give it a go, secretory immunoglobulin antibodies. So I call them SIGAs for short. And this is something that David Hamilton, if you've heard of him, talks about a lot. He's big in mind-body connection. He's also very big in kindness. Now, with a lot of research around the immune system, what they tend to do is they will measure these little SIGAs, these little antibodies, because the level that we have is generally quite representative of our immune health overall. So in one particular study, what they did was they got participants to watch a video, that's quite old school, isn't it? Maybe online, of Mother Teresa performing acts of kindness along the streets of Calcutta. And it's probably about an hour long. And they measured their little antibodies before and after. And what they found was their antibodies actually increased as a result of watching that video, as a result of watching Mother Teresa performing these acts of kindness. Now, what's interesting about this, and I just want to bring it home in the context of, the coronavirus and what's going on, I think it's important to recognize this because it's very easy when, society is in a state of panic or we're in this kind of period of uncertainty, everyone is going to be dealing with this in their own way. Different people have different levels of understanding of the coronavirus. Some people are taking it really seriously, some people aren't taking it seriously. But everyone's going to have different ways of coping with it. And I think what's really important is that we keep connecting to or keep recognizing that and keep connecting to this sense of compassion and kindness. Because if we go into judgment mode or fear mode, then we're going to be moving away from this, aren't we? And it's not going to be helping. It's not going to be helping us. So it's just something to really bear in mind, and fascinating too. So where visualization comes in, and I get really excited about this because I just think it's so fascinating. And again, this is something that I've sort of seen recently of David Hamilton, is they've done studies on how can we consciously influence our immune health through visualization. So there was a study that was done by this Professor Jean Achterberg. And what she did, her and her team, is they once again measured these antibodies. And what they did is they showed participants a picture of these antibodies. So they said, all right, that's the Y shape. So get a really clear image of what they look like in your mind. And then they got them to imagine those little antibodies multiplying. So visualize the Y shape and then just see those little antibodies multiplying until there's just so many of them. At the end of the study, they measured those antibodies and they had in fact increased. So purely from visualizing that on a daily basis, they had managed to increase their antibody levels. But what's even more amazing is that they actually did some later research which showed that we can selectively choose the immune cells we increase. So similar kind of approach, but this time they had two groups of people. Now, one group, they got them to visualize, they showed them what neutrophils look like, which is an immune antibody. And they got them to visualize those and see those multiplying. The other group, they got them to visualize lymphocytes and see those multiplying. And lo and behold, I mean, there's a few studies down the line, what they found was that did in fact correspond to an elevation in the specific antibody that they had visualized, which is, I mean, this is my area, but even I find that like just, you know, quite hard to comprehend really. So we have a lot of power. That's kind of the gist of this. So following on from visualization, this slide was obviously, the previous slide was obviously about people just generally increasing their immune health. So this one, these random images all have something in common. And that thing is that they've all been used quite creatively in using visualization to turn around ill health. Now, I'm just going to say, you know, right now, I'm not by any means advocating people come off medication, don't agree with that at all, but we should be supplementing our approach to health with things like this because it has huge power. So I'll start with the little Pac-Man. So this is work that David Hamilton has done specifically with people he's worked with. So it's kind of anecdotal work. So he's worked with women who have been undergoing chemotherapy for breast cancer. And what they did was they showed these women videos of the immune function, so how the immune system works, so they could get a really clear idea of what is going on when your immune antibodies fight off a foreign invader. And so once these women had a really clear idea of that, he might have even got them to do a drawing of them. He basically got them to every single day visualize, or they chose this, they visualize their immune system, their immune cells, sorry, were like these little Pac-Men that were chomping away the cancer cells. So they just visualized in their immune system these Pac-Men chomping away the cancer cells. Now, what's incredible is as they went on and they measured their immune cells, their antibodies actually increased. And for those of you who don't know, with chemotherapy, what you typically see is a reduction in your immune cells. So to see an increase, something is going on there. The other thing is the lightning bolt. So this was used by women, again, they had cancer and they were going through radiotherapy, and they imagined the radiotherapy was like a little lightning bolt that was just zapping away the cancer cells. And again, they noticed an increase in their immune cells. And this one here is really fascinating. So this is a wolf. And it was basically a lady who was diagnosed with something called lupus, which is an autoimmune condition. And again, for those of you who don't know, it is supposedly lifelong. Now, this woman in particular, she had a particular fascination with mythology. And so she looked at the Latin origins of lupus, and apparently it is wolf. So she decided to tame the wolf. That's what she was going to do, because autoimmune is where your immune system's in overdrive. And so every single day for several months, she would imagine that she was befriending this wolf. So in her mind, going up to this wolf, hugging it, giving it loving words, just saying lovely things. After several months, she had come off all of her medication and gone into complete remission. And that's just incredible. So again, like I said, I'm not suggesting that anyone comes off medication to do this stuff, but why aren't we supplementing our health care approach with this kind of work? So what are we going to do now? We're going to put it into practice. How exciting. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to look at how we increase our antibodies, okay? And we're going to do that by using our knowledge of what I've talked about already in terms of how we can get quite creative with this stuff. We're going to utilize our knowledge of the placebo effect. And we're also going to utilize our knowledge of viruses, which I'm about to share. Okay. So the way in which a virus works is it kind of acts like a bit of a syringe. So it will, imagine you've got this syringe sort of floating along, and then it kind of attaches to a cell and injects its own genetic material into it. That is then absorbed, replicated, and it then multiplies. So that's kind of the basics of a virus. Now, what if we got really creative and we decided to just bat that syringe away? You know, just like the kind of the Pac-Man that was chomping away. What if we could do something quite creative that tells that syringe where to go? It sounds a little bit out there, but you'll have to bear with me on this one. So I'm going to get you all to close your eyes again, and I'm going to guide you. Through this visualization. Okay. So when you're ready, just closing your eyes and taking a deep breath in and out. And what I'd like you to do is to just imagine that you've been given a new drug for this fancy virus that's been flying around recently. Been given a new drug for it. It's like a little pill maybe. And just noticing as it's put into your hands, just notice the colour of this new drug. What colour is it? What shape is it? Is it round? Is it rectangular? Square? Is it big? Is it small? Is it long? Just noticing what this new drug looks like, noticing what it feels like in your hand. This powerful new drug. And then just imagining that you're swallowing this new drug, and just feel what it feels like to have this water just washing through your mouth, going down your throat, and just imagine it releasing into your bloodstream, disintegrating into all of those little particles. And as they do, you can just imagine that you've got all these new little immune antibodies. Notice what they look like as they flourish and grow. Just recognizing the amazing power they have to keep your health and your wellness strong and thriving. And you can just notice what happens when you have these amazing little powerhouse immune antibodies. Anytime you walk past anyone in the street who may have come into contact with the virus, your little immune antibodies jumping to work. And just notice what they look like when they jump to work, how animated they are, how seriously they take their job, how well they do their job. I often imagine the 7 dwarfs in Snow White jumping up with dedication and energy, doing their job brilliantly. And as they do, every time they see one of those little syringes just floating in the air, it's almost like they whip out these tiny little tennis bats, small and sparkly, yet super powerful tennis bats. Bam, straight at that syringe. And on impact, it's almost like you can see it go bent out of shape. Maybe it even snaps, drops to the floor. Just noticing that. And then you can notice what happens when they see another one coming, and out comes that sparkly tennis bat, bam! Another one breaks and drops to the ground. So as you continue your day, should any of these little syringes float your way, immediately out comes the tennis bats and bam, broken and dropped to the ground. And again, and again, and again. Tennis bat after tennis bat after tennis bat. Until before you know it, the only thing that's left is lots of broken and bent out of shape syringes, just lying on the floor, all forlorn. And you can just notice what your little antibodies are doing now as they recognise the achievement of their work. Notice how this shifts and transforms your way of responding to the world now. With this new way of being, having the qualities of a healthy and vital immune system, just working beautifully in harmony with all of your cells. Feel what it feels like to have this health available to you. And just notice what life is like as you go through your days in this new way. Navigating life easily, naturally. So really connect with this. Feel what it feels like. Breathe it all in. Soak it all up. And then when you're ready, you can bring yourself back to the room. Welcome back. So I'm not going to invite any responses just yet, because I'm going to give you another exercise, and if we have time, we can talk about it afterwards. So the next exercise we're going to do is, doesn't that sound lovely? Harnessing existing health and vitality. Who wouldn't want any of that? So again, I'm going to get you to just closing your eyes. It's going to build on the resources that you already have available to you. Okay. So again, just take a nice deep breath in and out. Okay. So what I'd like you to do is to just take yourself back to a time of great health. A time that really just epitomizes that feeling of vitality, wellness and aliveness. Perhaps noticing that at some points in your life they'll be even more powerful than others. But just noticing which one sings out to you the most from all of those times. Deep emotional, mental, physical resourcefulness. And as you do, just deeply connecting with this time. And start to notice the sights around you, where you are. Noticing the colours, the intensity, the brightness of this experience. And how this really enhances these feelings that are already expanding through your mind and body. Feel what this feels like. And then just stepping into this moment even further. Feeling what it feels like to have just pure health, wholeness and flourishment Noticing how these qualities really enrich your experience in this world. Almost perhaps like the most diverse ecosystem, just flourishing and growing in colour. And just noticing this feeling, if this feeling had a colour, just seeing what that would be. Just noticing that. And then just allowing these feelings to really accelerate and grow even further. And just noticing how that feels in your body. It's almost like everything's just working in synchronicity. Like a well-orchestrated band. Just flowing easily, naturally. And then just noticing that colour and almost just imagining that you're beaming this colour a week into the future with you. And it's pouring all the way through every experience. And just notice how this quality of health and vitality filters into every experience. So the way that you hold yourself, the things that you do, the places you go, the people you see. Notice how having this quality of health and vitality just expands your sense of self in the world. Opening. And then just taking this feeling a year into the future when all's done and dusted, and you just have this sense of health just naturally part of who you are. It's just so familiar to you now. People might even say to you, how do you do that? You just look so radiant, so healthy. I need some of that. So just feel what this feels like. And then you can have this future you pouring this lovely colour, this quality back through you here in this room, in this virtual room right now. And have each and every one of your cells soak up this quality, this feeling. And just allow everything to just process until all that needs to be processed has been processed. And when you're ready, you can bring yourself back to the Zoom room. The tea's gone cold. Damn. So, yeah, feedback, welcome. Who would like to share their experience of either of those two exercises? Who found the first exercise more useful than the second, or vice versa?
I can just say, sadly, I was interrupted during the first exercise. I had to quickly dog out for a quick wee. So I didn't really. So I'm sorry. I will actually watch this again. It really started off really good. But the second exercise, it made me feel really great. It really, but it gave me some very interesting insights. I've actually realized that my mental image of myself all my life is as very healthy and able person. But actually, I can't really think of a period. Some people go through for years of never having even a flu or a cold. I'm never one of those people. I've always been ill a few times every year, so I can't really think of a period of really good health. But I can think of periods when I felt, I mean, most of the time I feel very able and strong, but I think that's my own delusion.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a good point, actually. And I think, you know, because I work with people some people have been ill their whole lives, you know, and so accessing that quality can be tricky for some. I think in those, if anyone else on the Zoom session experienced that, something that you can do when you take these exercises away is a bit like with Adrienne, I think you mentioned the plant. You can borrow from other things. So you can borrow from something that you see as really healthy and vital, like a beautiful garden or whatever resonates with you. Also as well, though, I imagine, you know, if you're into things like fitness or times when you've been running, those are quite good time to sort of capitalize on. But I think one of the things with the brain is the more that we train it to look for memories and to look for times of peak health or whatever it is we want, the more it starts to find them.
Hello, Emma.
Hi,
it's Nikki. Yeah, that last one there, I was really doing it. It was, you know, I was feeling great, and I just really, I mean, I believe it. I'm sure that I'm going to do that. I'm going to use it, and I just feel that that it will really help me.
Yeah, I mean, it's so like I said, I'm not here to talk about the lightning process, but that last one is, so the tools that I've shared in this, by the way, aren't anything to do with the lightning process, but the last one, there is an element, like we would use part of that within the lightning process. Some of my clients would use that within part of the tool that they have, and it is very powerful.
Yeah.
I mean, it's amazing. I never see, after however long I've been practicing in this, I still never cease to be amazed at the power of the brain-body connection, really. But if you think about it, I mean, with our neurology, what you're doing, that exercise that we did just there, we're changing our chemistry, and that can be changed very quickly. So, you know, there's this kind of a common belief is that with recovery, it has to take a long time. But actually, if it's your neurotransmitters and your hormones, which you are changing, which are obviously responsible for your physiology and your fight or flight response, then it makes sense that we can create this kind of change very quickly. But consistency is really important. So I would recommend that you all go away and I mean, I do this kind of thing, you know, at least once a day, maybe even just 2 minutes in the shower, just connecting with that feeling. Because what we're doing is we're saying, brain, this is where we want to go today. You know, you've got to consciously direct your brain. Did anyone have any questions out of that? Was there anything that they struggled with or could have done with a little bit of guidance on? I don't know how much time we've got for more questions, but
about a few minutes. Yeah.
Okay.
I just saw a comment from Shirley on Facebook. She really enjoyed the meditation. So saw her immune system like a ladder, quite strong, and saw her
wow.
once watered and soaked up that positive, replenished feeling.
That's beautiful.
Yeah, that was earlier on.
It's amazing how creative people get with this as well. It's amazing what comes to mind actually when we put that question out there. I mean, I guess all I will say is if there aren't any more questions, I'm always happy to answer questions, obviously. So just drop me an email or Facebook or go via StressBusters. Always happy to answer any questions.
Great. Well, thank you so much, Lauren. Like really some fantastic tools for us to practice. So so our first online StressBusters evening, I think went well. I don't know what the rest of you think. Did it feel real? Did it feel, I don't know.
Yeah,
was it
brilliant?
Yeah. I don't know. Interesting. It just, I don't know. I have to say I almost prefer it because I'm in the comfort of my home. I don't know. So I'm super lazy. Anyway, so as I said earlier, I have uploaded the event program so people can find more information about Niko and Lauren and some links there. So just before we finish tonight, I'm sorry we're not going to the pub as we usually do, but nothing is stopping us from having a glass of wine or beer, something after now or after we finish. Just to say a few things about upcoming events. So obviously those of you who follow the Hove StressBusters program know that in addition to the talk and demonstration evenings once per month, we also have workshops. At the moment we had family constellations, theory workshops, and also listening and sharing from the heart. Now all those workshops have been temporarily sort of suspended. But some of them might be available via Zoom soon. So those of you who are not subscribed to our newsletter, you'll find a link. You can subscribe to it via our Facebook page, and also in the event program I've included the link to that subscription link, so you can receive up-to-date information. Obviously follow us on social media and so on and so forth. On this event program, there are also special offers from Niko and Lauren, from our speakers tonight. So you can check them out and get in touch with them if you'd like to benefit from some of these discounted sessions. Also, there is information about the Hove StressBusters card. I know some people here have it. And just to say, our next talk and demonstration evening will most likely be on Zoom again. Although just now during the break, I was thinking, you know, what once everything gets back to normal, are we still going to have online StressBusters? Who knows? We'll see. But anyway, our next talk and demonstration evening is on the 6th of May. And we're having Julie here. Julie, some of you already know her. She's an Ayurvedic practitioner, very experienced Ayurvedic practitioner, as well as family constellations practitioner, as she mentioned earlier. So again, we're going to have another topical talk. So it's going to be Ayurvedic advice in the time of the coronavirus. I'm very interested to hear what the Ayurveda have to say. Actually, Julie has written 2 articles. You can find them on our website related to the kind of the Ayurvedic take on the coronavirus situation. So if you go to the Hove StressBusters website, the homepage, you'll find links to Julie's articles. And the second speaker will be Debbie Brown. So she'll be sharing the stress and trauma release exercises, TRE, so shaking off the stress. So she'll demonstrate, I believe she has somebody who is in isolation with her, who will act as a demonstration guinea pig for the TRE. So we'll have a chance to look at it and also possibly do it in the comfort of our home. You can switch off the camera if you don't want to other people to see it. But it was so lovely to see all of you tonight. As Niko said earlier, we have, this has been on Facebook Live. There will be a recording. So you can rewatch it. I will certainly rewatch this second exercise that Lauren just did with us that sadly was interrupted for me. So, so yes, I think it was amazing. Yeah, so thank you all for coming. Lovely to see you all. Hope you make the most out of the self-isolation. So every cloud has a silver lining, and I think the current cloud has a lot of silver linings. We just need to look out for them and find them. And thank you all. Hope I'll see you online, maybe even before next month. And certainly we'll follow each other on social media. So thank